All masons
as
are
of
master
medieval
masons,
times.
but he is the principal.
So, I'm just having a look here
Well,
at what's being replaced and what isn't.
The work done in here
Oh,
is exactly the same as it was done in medieval times. Indeed, in the cathedral, and Catherine on a specialist tour with one of us to see it, there is the old mason's loft. And on the floor is certainly 15th century and possibly earlier, marked out on a whitewashed floor in full size, some of the shapes were intended for the windows that were being repaired at that time. And what they did was they drew it out in full size on the floor, and then they made, in those days, wooden templates from it. Now, you've already seen one template, and behind you there are dozens of them, aluminium. All over the place. Templates from a full-size drawing. Everything here is created full-size.
Scale 1 to 1.
On a one-to-one basis, so there's no possibility of getting it wrong.
These are a nice collection of the wooden ones that the Victorians used. We've got hundreds of these in the
That's
building,
right.
stock all over the place. But John still finds them extremely useful because he knows exactly what he wants and goes and looks for it, brings it back and works from it.
You see, there's always this continuous need to ensure that you've got continuity. So you're looking at what was done 100 years ago, 200 years ago, sometimes 300, 400 years ago. You're looking at something and using a detective skills to identify what they were doing and why they were doing it, and using the things they've done in the past to ensure that what we're doing now is in keeping with what was intended originally. Okay?
So literally every single piece of stone has its own individual templates drawn, as is going on here. All two-dimensional, first of all, to then be converted into three-dimensional. And you have to be a mason before you can do any of this, because you have to, it's intuitive. You have to understand the different angles of the stone and what your fellow mason will be able to carve. But just to do something like this would have taken hours and hours of research and up and down on that scaffolding to get it exactly right and reference materials, particularly if something is so badly eroded that you can't actually see what it was. This is just where you've been. This is the apex of that east window. There is the statue, which means it's staying. Anything pink on here is being looked at, but not being removed. But it's the green that will be replaced. So all round here where you can see little green colourings with the hatching, cross-hatching, with the numbers on, that will be replaced. So you can see what a very random restoration job it is being. And then pink, which is staying for the time being, to be considered, because we don't quite know. This is quite interesting. I've never seen it before, but it's actually a data of the different period of the stones that are up there, starting with 1700s, which is purple, going down to the pale pink, which is 1890s, 1980s onwards. So we haven't really got time to look at all the different ones, but so these have been replaced, and presumably what is white is still considered to be medieval. So there's not a lot of medieval there, is there really? But there is quite a bit of medieval on that east window at the top, on that apex bit. But that's a map of that. When the drawing is completely finished, it's translated onto this zinc, scored on, cut out, the edges are then chamfered down, and then exactly what it is and where it is, everything has its own job card from start to finish, from when it comes out of the quarry to when it's finally fixed up onto the east front and signed off. And all the way along the various processes, it's actually signed off by whoever is working on it at the time. Have we got any rolls of zinc around? No.
That end, I think.
There should be some rolls of zinc,
rolls of
and then they're all put together. So sometimes you've got
There's a bunch of sheets.
10 or 11,
Yeah,
11 different templates just for one piece of stone to be carved. But it's a long and complicated process. They're on the drawing board.
Yeah, here they are.
Yeah.
It's easier to watch after.
The pinnacle that we saw on the outside with all the medieval ailments carved around them, when that was taken down, and John had a lot to do with the taking down of it, the original design, when it was put up in the medieval period, it had far more stones around this octagonal shape. and gullies had formed in between, and this allowed a lot of moss and water and various other things and trees to grow up there. So John completely redesigned the style of the stones. So instead of having, I don't know how many there were, 16 or something, he then made 8. And they incorporated the gullies and everything else, so that now there is none of this problem of the water dripping down in through the cracks and the seams. So it looks exactly the same, but he's redesigned it so that it will last a lot longer, it's a lot stronger, and functions better, shall we say. And these, of course, are all your little carvings.
Interestingly, you realise that to do something like that, it isn't just a question of John saying, I'll make it better.
Millions of committees.
Millions of them. Everything from English heritage
years.
through the university or whatever.
Yes.
Everybody's trying to do their best. But because it's a national treasure, because it's such an important building, they've got to get the agreement of everybody.
All these fabric
experts in all sorts of fields. And some people will want one thing and some another. And it ends up by being an amalgam of their views in order to achieve it. But it takes a great deal of time. It isn't just a question of, that sounds like a good idea, we'll do that. It really, everything has to be
local committees,
improved.
national committees, international committees. It can take a long time to do it. Yeah.
And of course we have a lottery grant, which means that there are rules in relation to that. One of them is that we have to provide educational activities alongside it. I mean, we don't cost anything, but a lot of the other things that the cathedral is putting into place are going to cost things, like plasma screens and so on, but not in the cathedral, I hope, in order to allow people to be taught about, because you see a lot that the public don't see. There's a lot that we haven't seen that's still worth looking at, but it's in difficult places to get to and all those sorts of things.
I mean, the reason you have access onto the East Front is because English Heritage insist that the public has to have access to everything, disabled and other ones. We can take disabled people out there if we want to. So it's because of these sort of access requirements that these tours and things like that can go on. I mean, it's great, it's lovely, but I mean, it's because of English heritage, and yeah.
I mean, Pat and I have been guides for quite a long time, and when we first started, we didn't do anything like this.
I know, it was just round the Minster floor.
Round the Minster floor.
Now we do all sorts, yes. Well, we train to do all sorts.
Oh yes,
we can still just do round the Minster floor. It's more interesting.
That's really useful to know.
You ought to,
Well,
I
any
suppose, be
questions,
going
please
some...
ask. If, you know,
Yeah, we'll go down to the...
How many huge rolls of paper are there? Where are they?
Well, they come in these things over here that go on the big printing machines.